the entire month. I get it that Purim is a holiday. What is the source for the fact that the entire month is supposed to be happy? What's the source for that? Anyone? How do we know the whole month is supposed to be happy?
Because Pesach.
Pesach's next month. So when we look in the Megillah talks about Haman drawing lots, and he was happy when it fell out on the month of Adar. That was, God forbid, when the destruction of the Jewish people was meant to happen in the month of Adar. Later in the Megillah, it says the month that was determined for sadness was transformed to joy. It doesn't say the day, the HaChodesh, the month that was designated, that was allotted in Haman's evil mind was going to be a tragic month for the Jewish people. It was transformed. So the Megillah itself says that the entire month, Purim is in the middle of the month, but it's a Jewish idea that Purim, we're supposed to be living Purim the entire month. It may culminate, it may come to a peak 2 weeks from tonight, but the whole month has to be Simcha. So we're here to discuss what we're supposed to be doing. So the first thing is that we can be doing something. That in Judaism believes that Simcha is a choice, and it's a choice at every given moment. I'll say that again. Judaism begins, we don't have a right to pursue happiness. I mean, we do. We have an obligation to be happy. A right to pursue happiness, all right. A right means I don't have to. Judaism says I have an obligation, because when I'm miserable, I'm not fun to be around, and I can't do my job effectively. The Rebbe actually once told shluchim specifically, they have a responsibility to show that Judaism has to be a happy religion. Like if you are, what's the word I'm looking for? Violating if you are unhappy, you are, going against your very mandate. It's big pressure to have to always be happy. In any event. So to be a Jew, we have a responsibility to be besimcha. Not a right, but a responsibility. Why? Because we can't do our mission effectively in the world when we're in a state of gloom and despair and sadness. And because we're not fun to be around. No one's fun to be around when we're in a bad mood. Okay. So Judaism says we have an obligation to be happy. Since we have an obligation to be happy, therefore you must say it's in our hands to be happy. So what's interesting, I don't know if you ever realized this, but in English, what's the etymology of the word happy? Hap. Like I happen, a happenstance, I happen, a happening. So the word happy itself denotes that it's determined by external factors outside of you. Isn't that interesting? The word itself in English, the etymology of the word happenstance, I happen to come across. There are other words also with that shorash, with that root word. And yeah. In Judaism, obviously, we take the opposite approach, and no, it is a choice. It could be harder, it could be easier, but it's always a choice. And in fact, it says in some books that in Hebrew, the word for bisimcha, to be bisimcha, is the same Hebrew words, if you play anagrams, as machshava. Machshava means your mind, your thought. So scramble the word machshava and you get bisimcha. Because wherever you're living, whatever you're putting into your brain, that can output simcha. So that's the opposite, happy or simcha. Isn't that cool?
Very cool.
Now, how? Easier said than done.
I was just going to say
Now comes how. So, there's thousands of pages of text that are dedicated to this, but the way I want to do it today, and what I wanted to focus the class on, is to focus on the holiday of Purim itself and the mitzvahs of Purim. Purim has a lot of customs, but it has 4 mitzvot. And looking at those 4 mitzvot as the template, as the other template, how to be b'simcha. All right, everybody with me? That's where we're going to go over here. What does the word Adar mean, by the way? Adar means strong, mighty. So it's when the mazel of the Jewish people is at its peak. Did you know that?
I didn't, but I'm just
Adir. Adir. What's Adir? Adir means strong, mighty. So it's when we are, we can have a whole class on astrology and Judaism. But what's the zodiac It's fish. It's fish. What's the Pisces? Yeah, but we always talk about fish having good mazel in Judaism, right? On Rosh Hashanah, their eyes are always open, so there's a lot about fish is good mazel. Rosh Hashanah, we eat fish. It says they are immersed in their source, actually. So for a Jew, that means to be immersed in godliness, like we're swimming in a sea of. Okay, so the zodiac is the fish. The word means strength, and it's a time when our mazel is at its strongest. It's also the last month we were in Egypt, but we probably didn't get much work done then. The last month, that is. Okay, so let's look at the Purim as a template on how to achieve simcha. Now, I'm not going to focus on the customs of Purim, because if you're focusing on the customs of Purim, you'd say, what's the template for simcha? Drink a lot. That's not what we're saying. Or dress up a lot, be a clown. That's the rest that we know that's not always true as well, as the old joke goes, right? It's the clown. What do they say about clowns? They're unhappy. Exactly. So we're not going to focus on the dressing up and the drinking. We're going to focus on the 4 mitzvahs of the day. It's not the masquerade. No. Now, there is something to be said about masquerading simcha. I've spoken about that before. There's not to be a clown, but there's something to say about acting the part, and hopefully the feelings will follow. I always joke about Mr. Rothstein, right? A blessed memory. Whenever I asked him how he was doing, he lived till 101. He would tell me, excellent. It's not a Jewish answer. Jews are always kvetching about something, Excellent. And not even thank God. Why excellent? So when you say excellent, you have to smile. Excellent. So he said, I want to be able to smile when I answer that question. So there's something to be said about forcing a smile and forcing happy, but, fake it till you make it. That's not what today's about. Today's going to be about the 4 mitzvot of Purim and how they are a template for happiness. So what are the 4 mitzvot of Purim? They all start with a mem. Megillah. Yeah, and the Hebrew word for Suda is mishteh. Mishteh is another word for mishteh, means a party. Okay, but the word used in Code of Jewish law is mishteh, so it's another mem word. Mishloach manot, right? And matanot le'avyonim is gifts to the poor. So they all have a mem. I don't know why that is, but so the 4 mitzvot of Purim is having a festive meal. That's why there are all these community parties. You're supposed to have a meal on Purim. You give charity on Purim. Those are gifts to the poor, specifically poor. Purim's charity means to people in need. You can always give to organizations. That's a wonderful thing. But Purim's is specifically to people in need who need money for basic needs. Gifts of food to friends. And of course, Megillah. So we're going to learn those 4 a little more detailed and see how all 4 are a template for simcha. What should we begin with? The one that makes people the least happy, hearing the Megillah. It's usually like, when's it going to be over, right?
Actually, at a Chabad.
It's still, at least when you were a kid, you had fun with the Hamans, and you were just waiting. It seemed like endless time between every Haman, endless. You're waiting from Haman to Haman. You get older, you do a little of this, but you don't even have the same fun as kids. I told my kids I'm buying them cap guns this year for Haman. I thought it'd add a little fun to it. It's a good idea. Cap guns, like the old days. They still sell them at the dollar store. They're still there. Really? I didn't. What is this? Oh.
That piece of paper that has it. You hit the thing with the rock.
Ah, I didn't know that. Oh, the bullets you can hit with the rock. I did not know that. Ah.
That was my thing too.
Because the gun is like violent, so you just do it with the noise.
Let alone what your neighbors may hear.
Yeah. Okay. On Purim, we don't need to feed into any anti-Semitism, but Megillah's long. It's a long. There's a reason why even today, when you want to talk about something being really long, the Yiddish word is like the ganze Megillah. It's so funny that became the hallmark Jewish expression for anything that is really, really long. And we've, so how is this the template for that which is? So I think one of the biggest blockages to simcha. There are many, but it is the frustration of life. It is the worry. It is the anxiety of things either not going the way you want them to be, or just stressed about the future and fear about the future. I mean, that is, if you have to talk about what are the biggest impediments and obstacles, obviously for some people it's real tzaros and it's, God forbid, sickness and death and God forbid. But for many people living with real fear about the unknown, and anxiety, and then, expectations that are not being met for the way life should be treating you, is very, very hard. Because we have an idea of the way things should be. And not always does reality match with the way things should be. And I think as society has progressed, we have a greater expectation of knowing everything, right? It used to be you didn't know anything. But today I know the weather, right? The chutzpah, it was supposed to be sunny and it's raining over my picnic, right? So we get upset about things because I think we do expect there to be a greater level of control in our lives. I think COVID for so many people was a great, gave such a, in Hebrew, you'd say the word bitur, such a humility. It knocked people's ego of how little they really are in control.
So true.
Everyone had their projections for my company, and then it's like, actually, you don't know anything, Please God, we never need another one of those. But the idea, I think, today that we have expectations of the way things should be, and we know more, and when things aren't the way they are, it's like, so it's raining for my picnic. Maybe the farmers need it, but I'm upset. So for that, we have Megillat Esther. And we've spoken about it before. The words Megillat Esther actually mean something. Esther means what? That which is hidden. She was called Esther. Esther means hidden in Hebrew. Her real name was Hadassah, but she assumed the name Esther. The name means hidden, and she hid her identity throughout the story until the moment where she had to tell Achashverosh that she was Jewish. Esther means hidden. What does the word Megillah mean in Hebrew? Giloi, galoi, legalot. To reveal, to show. Megillat Esther means to reveal that which is hidden. That's what the words actually mean, which is very, very cool. Megillah means a scroll, of course, but it also means to reveal. The entire Purim story was revealing that which was hidden. So when Esther had a moment, which was the worst day in her life, why in the world was I, a sweet Yiddish Ameitala, chosen to be married to a monster, to be married to this horrible guy, Achashverosh? And yes, she suffered greatly as a result of it. But she at least had the moment of recognizing why later on things were meant to be. That's Megillat Esther. Throughout the entire book, we see how things were meant to be. It didn't happen right away, but it happened over time. Now, not always are we privy to see that. Many times in life, we're not. But when a Jew lives with a life of Megillat Esther, what does it mean? It means that I'm not frustrated because you know what? I don't even really know what's best for me. I don't really know what's best for me. So I was speaking to a young person a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know, thank God it wasn't so stressed. Why so stressed? Because I just started a new job, and I just get hired for this new job, and just the paperwork and the drug testing and certain paperwork had to be done for me to start, and it's been stretching on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I haven't started yet. I'm so upset. So I said, maybe you're not supposed to start till next month. I don't know. Maybe you're not. How do you know? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just instead of saying I should be beginning because of that shlamazel, I'm not. You know what shlamazel means? Shalom mazal. That's it. I'm like, maybe not. Should let go. When you're supposed to be beginning the job, you're going to begin the job. Now, obviously, I'm not saying to sit on your, on the couch and do whatever you can in your power. But after that point, let go, and you'll know when it's the right time to begin the job. Stop stressing over it.
For me,
It's hard.
it's the biggest gift of everything. It changed everything.
If a person is able to do that, how do I really know what's best? We live with this expectation that I really know. I'm supposed to be going here. Maybe I'm not supposed to be going here when my flight is canceled. I don't know. So not always like in the Megillah story do we see the end result, but when I do my part, then I let go, and Hashem has a plan that's much greater than anything I can understand, as opposed to expecting that everything is revealed from the beginning. That's not Megillah Esther, and you have to go through the entire life, which often reads like the Megillah, with ups and with downs, knowing that there's a plan. You're able to do that? That already is. Now, out of the four, the same way it's the hardest mitzvah, out of the four on Purim, because it's boring and it's long. And to really do it, you're supposed to be following along, by the way, and listening, and it's hard. So I would say Kriyat the Megillah means learning these ideas and reading these truths, and it takes a lifetime of work in order to internalize these messages, because the natural impulsive reading of the world is, it's not fair. So the Megillah teaches us that we need to look beyond what's happening now, and it's a very long read throughout life. That's mitzvah A. By the way, we listen to Megillah both at night and day. We try to hear every word. The Megillah has 10 chapters. We've spoken about in other years that the Megillah spans many years. We read it in 30 minutes, but it spanned many, many years. And as the events were unfolding, it didn't look as rosy and miraculous and like one thing led to another. A lot of downtime in the middle. Looking backwards, we can see the Megillah Esther, but as it was happening, nothing was revealed. So we have to let go in life. We have to let go. I was telling someone this week, 100% responsibility equals 100% anxiety. If I feel everything is on my shoulders, then I'm carrying everything. I'm always anxious. If I feel that I do my part, then I let go, then I'm not living with that level of anxiety. People need to let go. It's like that story where I really loved it. The women were in Detroit for some convention. Remember they some Chabad ladies convention in Detroit, and there was a snowstorm, and they were stuck at the airport, and they got all frustrated because they all missed their flights. And they wrote a letter to the Rebbe. You know, we had all these important meetings over the weekend, and now we're stuck in Detroit. And the Rebbe underlined the word stuck and asked, what does this mean? So they thought it was an English problem. So they explained what stuck meant. And the Rebbe clarified it's not an English problem, that the word stuck is not in our vernacular. You're meant to still be in Detroit. There must be something else you're supposed to be doing that you haven't yet discovered. If you can, that's the first of the 4 mitzvot. The next, easy, matanot levyanim, which are gifts to the poor. Now this you don't need a 20-minute rabbi sermon for. Studies show. So it's amazing that Hashem made us in such a way that, isn't it amazing that the more we're trying to accumulate or the more we're focusing on self, often people get more miserable. And studies have shown, right, when you give people money and you can either buy something for yourself or buy something for somebody else, and studies show that the satisfaction and the happiness level that comes from that is greater in giving. Studies show this. It's so beautiful that God made us that way, because it didn't have to be that way. God could have made it not that way, and it'll be that much harder to give. But Hashem made us in such a way that when we give and it's done right, and I think it's the obligation of the recipient, especially if it's an organization, to let people know the nachas that their gift gives. I think it's very important. Someone was actually saying that you know, when you go to the store and you buy a soda right away, you drink it. It feels good, right? Whatever the case is, you buy a drink, it feels good. When someone gives tzedakah, they should have the ability of having that. This is the nachas. I see what I accomplished. So it's the job of the organization to let people have the nachas from what they had. I thought it was a cute idea. But going back over here, Hashem made us in such a way that the more we have, the more worries we have, right? So I get the new car. Now I'm worried that someone's going to scratch it. All of a sudden I have a whole new list, right? It's true, right? Every time I buy something, I now have a whole new host of worries associated with it. Do I have the charger? Do I have the batteries in good condition? That's I give something. So there's something very beautiful about stepping out of yourself. And that's the second mitzvah of Purim. One of the biggest obstacles to simcha is being consumed with self. Too much time with yourself and too much focus on yourself. You know, when you walk into a room, let's say it's and you don't really know anyone, you're not a social butterfly, and it's like you feel a little awkward, a little self-conscious. The moment though you're doing something for someone else, it's great now, right? It's an incredible thing that when we're thinking about ourselves, we get more miserable. And when we're doing something for someone else, all of a sudden we enter into a happier place. Studies show that. So that's the second mitzvah of the day. By the way, practically speaking, just to go through the mitzvot, this is done on the day of Purim. Megillah is done both night and day. Matanot Levyonim happen during the day of Purim. During the day of Purim. What?
I didn't.
Yeah. We learn this out of like wording from the Megillah itself. All of these laws, and we're supposed to be giving to enough for two. It's in plural, so it says in the Megillah matanot le'evyonim, which means at least two recipients. So if you're giving to one organization, again, this is for people that have basic needs. So at least enough for two. So you think of what the value of a meal is today, it has to be at least that. That is matanot le'evyonim, letting go of self, relinquishing ego. That's going to be the second template for simcha. So what do we have so far? Megillah is letting go of this expectations, realizing there's a lot more than what you see. And then the other one is relinquishing your ego and giving. The third one, mishloach manot. Mishloach manot is also a mitzvah that's done during the day of Purim. Even though in Chabad we can't do it all in one day, so we start the week before. But I have to make sure that on the actual day of Purim, you give at least two packages to at least two people.
And they have to have at least 3 things.
Two different items. I remember when I was a child, I learned that the two items have to have different brachot, and I found out later in life that law was made up. Never says that anywhere. Yes. What it does say is it has to be two different foods. But if one of them is a beverage, that's shehakol, and one of them is a chocolate, that's still considered two foods, even though they're both shehakol. I never knew that till a couple years ago. Even it was I don't know who spread that myth. It has to be two different brachot, but it has to be two different foods because it says gifts of food to not poor, to friends. So this is telling us the third key to simcha. And that is, you gotta hang out with people a lot. and there's something very beautiful about the way it's traditionally done. You go to someone's door, you ring the doorbell, you say, hey, happy Purim. Again, I'm sending a virtual gift card to a virtual friend somewhere. No, it's you knock on their door and you give them food and maybe they give something back to you. And there's this sense of community. That is mishloach manot.
I just heard that now.
Yeah.
You can have a message. You shouldn't deliver it yourself.
Oh, that you have a shliach. You can have a shliach doing it as well. You're saying that seems to you can have a shliach. You're saying that would seem to diminish the impact because you're not having, that's interesting.
Except it's a surprise.
Right. Oh, look who's delivering it.
And it used to be.
And you're bringing someone else into the action also. So you're allowing for a greater sense of community.
You don't know who's
Yeah,
you don't know
yeah.
who's from.
Yeah. So the third one, again, and there's so many studies about, I think the amount of time you spend at least 6 hours a day. I mean, it's a lot around people that you love. The levels of happiness in a person go up extraordinarily so. So we got to hang out with people, hopefully in person, but virtual is so that would be the third mitzvah that's done during the day as well. At least two food items to two friends. Mishloach manot. All right. And the fourth, mishta. Mishta means a party, but it's a specific type of party, meaning when you read the Code of Jewish Law, the function of the mishta is a feast of gratitude. It's a Thanksgiving. That's really what it was. The Jews were saved from an impending destruction. And we have a Mishnah in which we thank Hashem for the great kindness that happened in our life. So to me, the Mishnah is not, when I say of the keys to happiness, it's not have a lot of great food, but have a lot of great opportunities to celebrate and be thankful of your brachas in life. And you do it over food's even better. It's actually very interesting, very, very interesting. Anyone know what the last words of the Code of Jewish Law, the first section, the way the Code of Jewish Law is made up, it's 4 sections. The first section is all the daily and holiday laws. Next one are like kosher and ritual laws. The third section is marriage. And the fourth section is business and civil law. But the first one starts off from the morning to night. Then it goes through all the holidays of the year. The last holiday it covers because is actually Purim. And then the last section is what happens if it's a leap year. And it says that in a leap year, not this year. A leap year is a year there are 2 Adars. So it says some people have a custom of even on what they call the mini Purim, because it's Purim of, yes, to have a little party. And the last words of the entire code of Jewish law is, I want to get this right. It's very, very interesting. Tov Lev Mishta Tamid. Because someone who's of good heart will always find opportunities to have a celebratory meal. Maybe that's why Chabadniks are always having a Farbrengen for this occasion, and that Farbrengen, and this Simcha, and that. The last 4 words of the book of the Code of Jewish Law, someone who is a Tov Lev will always find opportunities, Mishta Tamid. What? That's the last 4 words. When he's talking, so what would the 4th one be? And we know the 4th key here is gratitude. Obviously, every single Jew begins the day with Moda'ani. So there's something beautiful about saying it, and there's something even beautiful about having a Thanksgiving meal. Not only once a year on Thanksgiving, but that's what the Mishnah is. That's the Mishnah. I was reading this incredible survey that was done where people answered all these questions about various levels of happiness. And then at the end, they were asked on this survey, they did not know why they were coming in, to write a 1-page essay on someone who influenced them, who made a big impact on their life. And they had to write it. And then afterwards, they finished and said, now you have to call that person and read it out to them. So some people refused, like, I'm embarrassed. Some people did it, but like, hi, I'm taking a survey and they made me, like that kind of thing. I think maybe I would be,
Disclaimer.
yeah, a little disclaimer to kind of downplay what they were doing. And then some people just read it,
Sorry, I never told you this before.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry I never told you this before, but you were my most influential teacher that I ever had. Da 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 da.
I just read something like that where it said, why don't we start saying things at people's birthday parties as opposed to saying it at their funerals?
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful tradition. I like that. It's a good tradition.
Said, raise your glass at the birthday party. Say, you're such a great.
That's good. That's good. So and needless to say, those individuals that did that were very, very happy afterwards. They were, because when you have an ability to express gratitude, you become happy. So the 4th one is going to be gratitude. Obviously, Judaism is a religion that is so based upon it, the Moda'ani, the daily brachos, just reading the daily brachot every single day. We should make a bigger deal out of everyone doing that because it's so easy. It only takes a few minutes. And out of all the prayers, I find it the most meaningful. When I teach Hebrew school, I wrote in my weekly email, every week I stop on another one and I explain that one to them really, really well. What does it mean to open the eyes of the blind? What does it mean that we have the ability to see light and dark, discern between good and bad? What does it mean to stand up straight? What does it mean that we have all our needs met? Each one of the morning brachos, and every week I focus on another one. So that's the 4th. So in short, what do we have? Adar is a time of happiness. So we're using these 4 mitzvahs as our template. Number one, you don't really know what's good for you. So don't get frustrated and upset and anxious when things don't go your way. You just don't know. Megillat Esther, life is a mystery. God has a plan. You are a player in the story. One day it's all going to be revealed, whether it's in your lifetime or not in your life, but know that God's looking out for you and know you ultimately don't even know what's best. That's number one. Number two is the more you give and the more you focus on other people and the more you get out of yourself, you'll be happy. The more you are focused on yourself. And it's so interesting because we live in a time today where we, thank God, have the ability to always focus on feelings more than any other generation. Like, how am I feeling? And there's something very good about that. But you can also be so worried on how you're feeling that you don't get out of yourself. And I think there's a real danger in that. There's a real danger in that. I had someone who was joking. He said he was taking their kids on a trip. And he said in the middle, is everyone having a good time? And the kid in the back said, I actually was until you asked me that. Because once I start thinking, right, once I start thinking about it, this is it. Right, whatever. But when you're caught up in something, you're just not. So when we are involved in good things, specifically for other people, we're in a flow and we're just not thinking about ourselves. That's the key. Of course, we have to work. We have to take care of ourselves, but we're not thinking about ourselves too much. That's the second mitzvah. The third mitzvah is hanging around with people we love a lot. That's mishloch manot. And the fourth mitzvah is having lots of opportunities to express gratitude. And do it over l'chaim. Why not? Very simple. Those are the four mitzvahs. That's our template for simcha. We should all walk away with which one of these one out of the four are we going to focus on more during Adar. We'll hold it here.
Beautiful, beautiful.
When they made a reservation on a plane, and the plane is hundreds and hundreds